Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Look at that. Bitcoin just within the last 3 hours or so has exploded higher from 87,000 to about 92,000 per coin. What's happening, and could this be foreshadowing a larger market rally in the coming days? We'll talk about that in today's episode. We'll get you caught up to speed and everything that happened today in the stock market and in the land of crypto. Do me a quick favor and hit that like button, as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check that link out down below in the description of today's episode if you guys want to come join the trading community. But what an explosive move in Bitcoin today. There's actually talks of short positions being liquidated, like shorts covering in some of their Bitcoin shorts, which with such an aggressive rally, that could make some sense. The only thing that I can actually find in news today is Michael Burry says Bitcoin is the tulip bulb of our time. He says that Bitcoin is not worth anything and that seeing it hit $100,000 was ridiculous. There's some talk about short positions getting liquidated if Bitcoin rises to 97,000 or so. There's one post here on Reddit from 12 hours ago that says Bitcoin's rise to 96,900 could trigger 9.6 billion short position liquidation. But there's not a whole lot of new things that have happened. It just, there's a lot of buying pressure that came into Bitcoin pretty fast, right? It happened all at once, okay? And maybe there is some short positions that are, being called back, being closed out of. Maybe this is a sign of that end of the year rally. As you know, Bitcoin tends to lead the market. So at the time of recording this video, Bitcoin has went from 87,000 to 91,000 in about 3 hours. So it's been a pretty rapid rise. So if Bitcoin is telling us anything about what could happen next for markets, it looks like good things could be coming, and maybe Santa Claus arrives after all. If we look at your broader indexes today, the Russell 2000 is coming under the most pressure, still green but up 0.16%, Nasdaq up 0.63%, S&P up 0.27%, the Dow is up 0.44%, the VIX down 3.25% today. If Bitcoin keeps up this momentum to the upside, I do think you're going to see a resurgence in the risk on trade. Like the Russell should begin to outperform in that kind of a scenario. Now, tomorrow we do have important economic data coming out, like ISM services PMIs. Services are about 80% of the economy versus manufacturing, about 20%. So that data is going to be very important, specifically the prices paid component. Now, today, the odds of a rate cut are roughly unchanged from yesterday, still sitting at about 85% for December 10th. We're going to get a rate cut in December. Okay? The question is, do we get a rate cut in January? Yesterday, the odds of a rate cut in January were, as well as December, stood at 25.4%. Today, they're at 27.3%. The odds of a pause yesterday were 64.3%. They are now 62.3% today. You didn't get a whole lot in terms of data that moved those probabilities. 10-year Treasury yields slowing their rise is contributing to that. We've seen yesterday 10-year Treasury yields went up a lot. Okay, since November 26th, yields were 3.99%. They are now 4.10%. So that is helping to contribute to some of the volatility we've seen in the markets recently, but also the falling of rate cut expectations for January. Now, also in the news today, Trump says the Louisiana governor asked for federal help in New Orleans. And Trump says that they are going to send the National Guard there within the next couple of weeks. Donald Trump says that, quote, I think and hope we're going to end the Russia and Ukraine war. Donald Trump says, quote, "I believe in the near future you won't have income tax to pay." Trump says we are going to give refunds out of the tariffs. This is like the stimulus check that the government has talked about for next year, like the $2,000 rebate check from tariffs. He says it's going to come out of the tariff money. Donald Trump says that, quote, "We are negotiating with Democrats on health care." But he says it won't be easy. He also says U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent doesn't want the Fed's job and that he will be announcing a new Fed chair early next year. Donald Trump says even Jamie Dimon said Powell should reduce rates. NVIDIA's CFO today says absolutely not is the U.S. losing the lead in the AI race. This is something I talked about as a potential like gray swan event for next year, right? If something happens and China is perceived to be the leader in AI, that would spell really bad news for the stock market, right? For really the US economy at large. We're very privileged in this country to have the petrodollar, right? Where, you know, most of the world's oil is transacted in dollars. There is a constant demand for dollars out there. It's one of the reasons we have the reserve currency status in the world, because we're the most powerful country economically and militarily. But if you don't win the future, if you don't win the AI race, which is the future, it throws a lot of problems at the US from an inflation standpoint, from a low interest rate standpoint. Like, the dominoes would domino down if we lose the AI race. And that's a risk. At some point, it will happen. At some point, there will be some kind of new technology in China that will make Wall Street consider China as the leader in AI. And I don't know when that's going to happen. It could be a next year's thing. But that's partially why NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, recently, when he said that China was not far behind the U.S., it sparked some fears out there. But NVIDIA's CFO says, yeah, guys, don't worry. We're far ahead of China. Now, the Pentagon says they have a contingency plan if Maduro leaves power. Pentagon Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson said the department has a contingency plan should Venezuelan President Maduro leave office, but U.S. forces would act only on presidential orders. She emphasized that U.S. efforts in the region focus on dismantling narcotics networks, labeling those involved as narco-terrorists. Decisions on excluding Venezuelan officials from a transition would be made by the president. Walmart CFO today says peak impacts from tariff costs likely hitting in Q1. Also in the news today, Amazon is rushing out its latest AI chip to take on NVIDIA and Google. And Amazon today, after releasing this new AI chip, says that it is more cost effective than NVIDIA. U.S. Energy Secretary Wright says the U.S. plans to tap unused diesel generators for more power. And also in the news today, U.S. money market assets surpass $8 trillion for the first time ever. Putin says today that Europeans hinder the U.S. administration and Trump from reaching peace through talks. NVIDIA CFO says $500 billion in bookings for Blackwell and Rubin AI chips through 2026 does not include any of the work that we're doing right now on the next part of the agreement with OpenAI. And according to reports, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman declared a code red, urging employees to focus on significant upgrades to ChatGPT as competitors such as Google and Anthropic make advancements. Also in the news today, expectations of job losses among 18 to 34-year-olds are near record highs, per Bloomberg Intelligence. Now, today, we did not have much on the economic calendar as far as economic data. We did get the RCM TIPP Economic Optimism Index for December that came in at 44.2. The previous month was 43.9, so that's a little bit of an improvement, but the expectation was 48.5. Look at, November was really bad. Call it government shutdown, all of that. You're back to basically where you were in October and September, still sitting at pretty low levels overall. Not great. But tomorrow we have much larger important economic data, you have the ADP employment change for November. This is the private payroll number. So you have the government numbers, then you have the ADP, which is a private company that does it. And you're only expecting around 10,000 job ads for November. Last month was 42,000 positive job ads for October. So you're expecting a pretty bad number tomorrow, which we'll see could raise the odds of a rate cut, but it could spark more recession fears. So it's balancing that, which is going to be interesting to see tomorrow. You're going to get export prices, import prices, industrial production, all of this data here. That's for September. So I don't think it's going to be as important. But this here is for November. That is ISM services PMIs, business activity, employment, new orders, and prices. What we seen from the manufacturing data was the most important component was prices. That is what people really cared about. Prices in the services industry have been high forever. I mean, goods inflation tends to be negative over time. Services inflation tends to be really high, but you're even higher than, where we historically are. Okay, and you're expecting a number of 70.3. This could probably come in a little bit lower. Now, PMI stands for Purchasing Managers Index, so it's individuals in the service sector that are basically giving their opinions on employment, new orders, prices, and business activity into the future. It's not like hard data, it's what you'd call soft data. But it is something markets will probably respond to. Now, we do have some earnings coming out today and after hours as well. You have Marvell, GitLab, CrowdStrike, Pure Storage, American Eagle Outfitters, Box, Okta, Asana, and then tomorrow you have Dollar Tree, Macy's, RBC, and Sprinkler in pre-market. And after hours, Salesforce, Snowflake, C3 AI, UiPath, Five Below, PVH, and then Thursday you have Kroger, Dollar General, Hormel Foods, Build-A-Bear Workshop, TD Bank in the morning, and then Rubrik, DocuSign, Centennial One, Samsara, ChargePoint, Ulta Beauty, and Sportsman's Warehouse in after hours, and then Victoria's Secret Friday pre-market. Now, the CNN Fear and Greed Index today is coming in at 24. Market momentum is fear, stock price strength, extreme fear, stock price breadth, extreme fear, put and call options, extreme fear, market volatility is neutral, safe haven demand is fear, junk bond demand in extreme fear. 24 is in extreme fear still. Kind of unusual to have the S&P so close to new all-time highs, and for so much fear to be out there in markets. Now, based on what Bitcoin is doing, this could be foreshadowing a larger rally to come, but of course we will have to wait and see. It's definitely not happening instantaneously, but that's the deal. Crypto tends to move first and then stocks tend to move afterwards. Okay, if there truly is short sellers covering on short positions, I wouldn't be shocked if that starts to happen in the markets as well. Now, again, we do have some big catalysts coming tomorrow with ISM services PMIs, as well as later this week you have PCE data and some personal spending data from September, right before the government shutdown started. Kind of outdated data, but markets likely will still move on it. Now, just again to look at broader market sentiment, the AI investor sentiment survey last week showed bullish investors fell down to 32%, which is a recent low. Not as low as you were back in April, but as low as you've been since April. Okay, neutral investors at 25.3%. That rose about 2% week on week. And bearish investors fell about 1% from 43.6% down to 42.7% in the past week as well. So definitely lots of bears out there. I am personally going to be watching this Bitcoin situation closely, and I want to see how the markets respond to that. Today's an okay day. Like, the S&P is kind of unchanged today. Russell kind of unchanged today. It was up a little bit, then it was down a little bit. NASDAQ doing a little bit better, but you've just started to see the Bitcoin recovery. I would imagine this feeds into stocks in the coming days. And, if it doesn't, it's going to be a real head scratcher, and we'll have to try to, figure out why that is. But it does look good so far to see a recovery in Bitcoin, and should translate into broader market gains. Now, with that said, that is going to conclude today's episode. We do have a big update to give you on Resolve AI at 6 p.m. today. I know a lot of you guys are invested in that stock as well. So come back to the channel at 6 p.m. so we can share all of the latest details and analyst price target reiterations following the acquisition Resolve announced yesterday. Do me a quick favor before we wrap up this video. Hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and check that link out down below in the description of today's episode if you guys want to come join the trading community. But with that said, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.